today we have a very interesting topic. We'll be talking about a brand new book written by our CEO Darko Pavić, titled "The Fiscalization Compliance Maturity Model." This book brings a completely new way of understanding fiscalization. So I'm delighted to introduce our CEO Darko Pavić, who will take you through the key concepts and insights from the book. Welcome, Darko.
Hello, thank you, Angela, for short introduction.
You're welcome.
I'm very excited about today's webinar. So let's do it.
Okay, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So we changed this time the concept. Usually we are first introducing the company, telling you about our products and services and so on. But this time we decided to do it a little bit different. So we will jump directly into the topic. And I will ask you first for the beginning, because I see many of you are coming from the fiscal countries. Do you believe that it's possible to make the fiscalization competitive advantage? If you think yes, just comment yes. If you don't think so, please comment no. I can tell you already now that many people don't believe that you can make such a complex topic like compliance or fiscalization an advantage. And I think we can do that. So tell me, please, in the comments, do you believe it can be competitive advantage or not? So we have already some yeses, and absolutely, that's good. I'm really glad to hear that, and a little bit surprised, because usually people think it's a big burden and hurdle on the way to the innovation and better business. But we can really do that. So today we will talk about how to do that, actually, how to make the fiscalization your competitive advantage. And it doesn't matter if you are POS software vendor, solution vendor, or retailer. The situation is very, very similar. And I will, of course, introduce the book which I wrote, but I will always focus exactly on this topic. So for the beginning, I want to create a short, let's say, imaginary scene. Imagine that you are a retailer, and imagine that you have a very big chain, let's say, of the fashion retailers across many different countries. You are using is maybe kiosk system, because you want to inform the customers and to create another touch point for them. And now imagine the situation. It's a rainy day. Don't ask me why rainy, but just to make a little bit more drama. So rainy day, one of those countries, let's say, one of those fiscal countries, complex fiscal countries, big city, your fashion store, and customer is entering the store. Customer is approaching the kiosk system, searching for the items, and customer is lucky because customer found the item that he would like to have. And he is able to purchase that item directly on the kiosk, directly on the spot. But the kiosk will, of course, accept the credit card, and the customer will be able to pay, but you will deliver this item later. Because you want to trigger, let's say, the background processes directly after the selection of the item. Most probably it will take some time. You will probably not deliver the item immediately, but it will take some time, and probably you will deliver it next day. And now, in your great company, in your structure, you have people which are, of course, very smart, and they think, why shouldn't we improve this kind of process and deliver the item on the spot if it's available in the store? Why waiting, and why using all those logistical processes in the background to deliver the item if we have it already in the store? So the customer could take it immediately from the shelf, be happy because it has immediately the item, and leave the store. If your business manager is thinking like that, maybe he even changed the process in a couple of seconds. So it's just a small decision, which is maybe taking him just 2 seconds to do it. He is deciding maybe to change the process and to deliver the item directly in the store. But now the bad guy, fiscalization, is kicking in. This is a fiscal process in that case, and you are getting or becoming illegal unless you do certain things with your kiosk system in that case. So in many, many fiscal countries, this kind of simple process, let's say, or simple change of the process leads to the point that your systems are getting illegal. Why is this happening? Because the business manager maybe didn't know that the fiscal country has this kind of processes, or maybe you don't have mechanisms in your environment to prevent this kind of situations. So this is exactly the topic that we want to discuss today. How to organize the companies, how to organize the processes, and which mechanisms to apply so that this kind of situation cannot happen, or even other way around, that this kind of situations can happen, but that you stay legal, let's say, without having additional risks and without paying additional fines or whatever. So this is exactly the topic of my book, how to prevent this kind of situations, how to create, let's say, the infrastructure which is needed in order to be compliant, to stay compliant, and then even to be able to do the fast business changes, to implement the new business concepts and so on. So we want to avoid that simple decision creates huge risks, of course, but at the same time, we want to create situations so that you can make the fast decisions and be compliant at the same time. So this is exactly what we will talk today about. And my book, let's say, which I wrote a couple of weeks ago and published a couple of weeks ago, should help you to do that exactly, to avoid those situations which can cause huge risks in your company, but at the same time, of course, to increase or let's say decrease, even better to say, the time that you need to train the people to understand the fiscalization so that they are not creating or making these kind of decisions like that kind of business manager in our example. So this is what we will talk about today. But now you may ask yourself, why exactly today? Why we are talking now about that topic? Let me give you a couple of statistical information, what's going on in the fiscalization world and even in the compliance world, so not just in the fiscalization topic and area. If we just focus for a second on Europe, we have around 46 countries in Europe, and more than 70% of them, I think it's 74 or something like that, are fiscal countries. Some of them completely and some of them just partially, but most of them are fiscal countries. So this is obviously showing the situation, what do we have today in all those countries. So you don't have other chance, or the retailers don't have other chance than to think about the fiscalization and how to do that. But it's not just the fiscalization, the point of complexity. We have other laws which are popping up like very trendy topics, for example, e-invoicing. So everybody is talking about e-invoicing in the moment. And if you analyze the roadmap of the e-invoicing countries, you will see that till 2027, you have many countries which are implementing e-invoicing. E-invoicing is also part of the compliance as I see it. On the other side, you have the retailers which have the pressure, let's say, to move out of the countries because the countries are getting too small. They're getting too small because the competition is getting bigger and bigger, and other companies are getting inside the country as well. So the retailers have to find a way how to go globally, how to go out of the countries. At the same time, the new business concepts are popping up. We have social commerce, we have live commerce, we have nowadays agentic commerce, and so on and so on. And all of those business concepts, if you want to implement them, have to follow the laws and the rules which are locally in all those countries. So overall, we have now this situation like this. We have a huge margin pressures on the retailer side. We have a absolutely need to go out of the borders of one country, so to become global. And we have rules and laws which are popping up, the new rules, and the rules and laws which are changing around us. All that together is creating a very critical combination for the businesses. I'm sure you know that, of course. And the compliance is becoming a bottleneck. So you cannot just like that open the store in France without thinking about the French requirements. And then even if you did that and you want to implement live shopping, you have to ask yourself, do I need to do something with fiscalization or not? So the fiscalization, and I would like to say even the compliance, not just fiscalization, but the compliance is a challenge, sure, but you don't have other options than to do it. And if it's like that, if you have to do it anyway, then it's now exactly the right moment to think about how to make it better and even more effective, so that you even can create certain advantages for your business and your companies. Let me give you a short overview. So we have actually two parts, like on the scale. On one side we have ambitions. I'm now relating to the post-software vendors and retailers. We have, of course, the ambition to implement lots of new businesses, new concepts that I just mentioned. But it's not enough just to implement them. You have to do it in the shortest possible time, because it doesn't make sense to implement, I don't know, live shopping in 2 years if it's now trendy and everybody's doing it now. So the time is very crucial point if you are trying to go global and to implement the new businesses as well. The next issue, which is making the ambition even bigger, is going global, of course. So expanding your business in the new countries. But this is altogether not enough as well. So you need a kind of innovations in your retail business in order to attract the new customers and to reach the new markets. But all that at the same time by reducing the complexity, of course, and by that reducing the costs which are related to that. Already that sounds very difficult, because these are two different areas. And now let's put a little bit more drama on that. So let's make the rainy day even more rainy. We have reality, and reality is like this. The legal requirements are very complex. In many cases, not that easy to understand. And in many cases, very general. Not concrete legal requirements are implicating the technical requirements, which are almost not possible to fulfill. So if you take the law, the rules from certain countries, and you want to develop software in order to fulfill that, it will be very difficult, because there is a lots of room, let's say, for interpretation. Then we have even with our own companies an issue, because the responsibilities are mostly not that clear. Who is actually the Mr. Fiscalization, the Mr. Compliance? Is there a team handling that or not? So even our own organization is in many cases in that situation that the reality is a little bit different than ambition. Then we have, of course, always a huge efforts per country, and this is usually either related to the retailer who is paying that and having their own efforts high as well, but always related to the post-software vendor as well, who has to implement it. Complex maintenance, even if you did your job, even if you implemented the country-specific versions, you have to maintain it. And the people are changing, the people are moving around the project. So probably in 2 years, you will not have the same people that could focus on those new requirements or law changes. So it will be very difficult to handle, let's say, the maintenance topics as well. It's not just technical part and the technical issue, it's also organizational issue. And now we are coming to the last point that is also very huge on our side as well. It's related to the resources. How to ensure that the resources that you are adding to the projects, which you have probably, have the needed knowledge. In our company, we are spending several months if we want to include the new team members in certain areas of the fiscalization. And I know it's not different on your side. You need also that time. And this is related to the topic itself. It's very complex. And if you are talking about international requirements, then there are so many different options, so that it's very difficult to find the people who understand all those options. Unfortunately, on the other side, there are no schools, there are no universities, and it's mostly trying and failing, let's say, in order to learn how to do something in the fiscalization. All that ambitions and all that problems led me to the solution of the problem. First, of course, for us, we did that for us. And then we are sure that it's also a solution for the problems which are similar on your side. And this is actually the tool which is helping us to become more mature company in handling compliance on one side. And on the other side, the tool which is helping us to cut the onboarding time of those new people which we are just introducing and including in our teams. By the way, I didn't introduce myself. I'm since 28 years in the industry. I started as a software developer, project manager, and guy who was actually dealing with lots of POS software in many different markets in one of the biggest providers of the software solutions in the world. Then I opened my own company, which is now existing since 22 years. And in all those time, you can imagine I had lots of very nice and very successful projects, but also lots of failures, let's say, and projects which were not that successful. So all that knowledge, by the way, I was always focused on the big retailers across the several countries and POS software vendors, of course. So I had always the global approach in my career. So all that knowledge and all that experiences which I had, I put it now in this book. I wanted to create a framework which is actually giving the opportunity to you and to me, to our company as well, to assess our own company, to analyze our own company first, and to see what are the weak points, let's say, how we are able to handle those complex compliance issues, and then to get a clear roadmap and the clear steps, how can I improve that? All that is actually in this book. But there are, let's say, 4 major elements of the book and of that framework that I just explained. I will go a little bit back in the history as I started my career, and I faced, let's say, lots of projects in different even market environments and countries and so on. I heard always from the retailers and POS software vendors how special they are. So if I started to talk to the retail, they told me always, yes, your business solutions and your solutions are great, but we are different. We have a different business processes. We are handling the topics differently. Yes, I understand that, but not 100%. So actually, it's possible to group the companies which are today active in the industry, in the retail industry, in 4 major groups. And those 4 major groups are actually exactly those 4 levels which are actually showing on which level is each company related to the handling of the different POS software requirements, not just compliance, POS software requirements, and how it's handling the development of those POS software requirements. I was able to sort and to group all those companies that I know, and there are lots of companies, as I mentioned, in 4 groups. The first one are the companies which are reacting on the certain changes. And the changes or requirements can come from different sources, like the board, like the customer, like marketing, like whatever. So they get it and they react. This is the first group. And this is the lowest level in my framework, compliance maturity model, actually. And I will discuss this a little bit later more in detail. The second group of the companies are companies which create so-called islands. So I call them islands, where the parts of the companies are handling the regions or accounts or something else, or markets maybe, market segments and so on. But those islands are not connected with each other. So they are isolated more or less. This is the group of the company which I called level 2 companies, fragmented companies. Then we have the level 3. Those companies are starting to connect those islands that I just drew, and that I just showed to you. So this is already a little bit this is already quite advanced, because those companies are thinking about general processes and general tools which can benefit all of those islands, how I call them. The 4th level is the highest level of the maturity, and the group of the companies which is handling the POS requirements, and by that also the compliance-related topics on the strategical level. I will explain you later more in detail what does it mean actually. After analyzing all those companies that I sorted and grouped in all those 4 groups, I, of course, recognize that if you move from level 1 to level 4, your risks are changing, your costs are changing, your processes are changing. And all that enabled me to create something like a roadmap, let's say, for the companies which wants to move from the level 1 reactive level to the strategical level. And by that, of course, as they move over those levels, they are able to reduce the risks, they are able to reduce the costs, they are able to be faster, to decrease the time to market, and of course, to handle the fiscalization and other compliances, like e-invoicing and so on, easier. And this is exactly what is inside the book. So there is a huge compendium or huge book around 450 pages handling fiscalization in detail as an example for the compliance. So this means the book can be used for everything else as well related to the compliance, because compliance is very similar. It doesn't matter if you develop country-specific invoicing or country-specific fiscalization. From the process point of view, from the organizational point of view, it's very similar. So that's why the book is covering compliance with example and deep analysis, let's say, of the fiscalization itself. It's dedicated to the retailers and POS software vendors. In most cases, I'm not differentiating because it's very similar. You will see later as well. Only in certain cases, like for example, if we are talking about KPIs are certainly different for the retailers and for the POS software vendors. So if there is a need to handle or to discuss and describe retailers and POS software vendors differently, I'm doing that in the book as well. So we have, or the book has 11 chapters going deep into the detail about the fiscalization, and a short add-on, which is not that short. So I added the description of 25 countries, fiscal countries, but the description is not that detailed that you can use it for the software development. It's detailed enough for you to understand what has to be done in that country, what are the requirements, and how to organize, let's say, your software development, not what to do. In order what to do, you need, of course, more deep technical discussion and analysis of the requirements. But those overviews are already enough for lots of things in order to handle it strategically. The best part, or the part that I like the most, is a practical part of the book. So I included also 7 checklists, and I will show you what those checklists actually mean, which are describing in the detail certain topics which are very important for your business if you are handling fiscalization. Like, for example, how to choose the POS software vendor related to the fiscalization, how to recognize if that POS software vendor is mature enough. The same is valid for us, how to recognize if the fiscalization provider, fiscal solution provider is good enough, is it fitting to your requirements, let's say. How to prepare rollouts, for example, in certain countries, and not to forget small details, like, for example, to have a, I don't know, printed service book for your fiscal printer in Romania, for example, because it's probably a requirement over there. So that level is or are those checklists. Then we created something, or I created something which is, from my point of view, very helpful. These are so-called KPIs. So the biggest problem which I had during all those years of my experiences was to measure if certain projects are successful or not. Of course, the end target is always clear. You want to open the store and to be compliant. But how to measure how good is your process in between? How to measure or how to identify which elements of your process can be optimized or more effective? So for that, you need elements, you need ideas and concepts how to measure your work and your success, your achievements. This is what I defined in so-called KPIs, of course. And I divided them into retailer KPIs and POS software vendor KPIs, because both groups are following different targets, so that's why there are different KPIs, of course. One thing which is also in the book, and I think it's unique in the world, I created also return on investment formula. So it's very difficult, of course, in compliance to measure your return on investment, but it's possible, and I have certain ideas how you can do it. Don't take it too seriously. It's not something that you have to do, or it's more like something which should give you inspiration, let's say, to create for you personally, for your projects and your company, the return on investment calculation as it's best for your company. But already to see the idea which is behind, I think it's very, very useful. There are 11 chapters, as I told you, so I'm starting with the technical issues, of course, explaining the fiscalization more in detail. What is the fiscalization, which types of fiscalization we have, and so on. But I'm also touching the algorithms of the fiscalization, or which are used in the fiscalization. There are many of them which are very interesting. But I'm talking also about the different software concepts, different middleware concepts, or different ways how you can implement the fiscalization. The idea is to give everybody who is involved in the fiscalization topic an overview about all the topics which are, let's say, important for the fiscalization. The key element are those 4 levels or 4 groups which I just explained, and I'm going in each of them in detail to explain you what are the characteristics of those companies on that level and how to move from level 1 to level 4, so between the levels. It's of course a suggestion. By the way, it doesn't mean that you have to move. Maybe is your organization perfect on the level that you are today. Great. But at least thinking about possible optimization or moving the stairs to the higher level could be interesting. I'm totally sure. Maybe you get some kind of ideas how you could do something even better than you are doing it already today. The chapter 11 is handling the roadmap, which it's actually not really roadmap. It's a list, and the list of the steps that I suggest for you. How can you move from between those levels, including the checklists, which are helping you to do that, KPIs, return on investment calculation, and so on and so on. The end area of the book, or the last part of the book, are those countries by themselves, 25 of them, and I will show you later a little bit which countries are covered in the book as well. In the next part of this webinar, we can make a small game. So I will do following. I will present you each of those 4 levels, which I am describing in detail in the book. I will not go that deep into detail, but detailed enough so that you can maybe mirror those levels and those descriptions with your company. If you want to tell us if you recognize yourself on one of those levels, please comment it during the presentation in the comment. If not, it's totally fine. So let's start with the first level. So you as a company might be on this level if you are reacting, let's say, on the requirements which are happening in the markets. So you don't have a particular structure or policies which are defined to handle the fiscalization or compliance, and you are doing it more or less ad hoc. We can call it even firefighting mode, because somebody from upstairs, maybe from management or whoever, is pushing to you the need to do something. So you have now to react on that, and you have to implement certain country version and fiscalization in certain country. The awareness across the countries, across the organization, means your company is very small. So this means unless you are really directly involved in the fiscalization, you even don't know what is the fiscalization. In our example from the beginning, this business manager is probably example of the company or working in the company on that level, because he didn't know nothing about the fiscalization. So this means the awareness is probably very low. And that's why you don't have a training which is actually dedicated to the people outside of your technical or legal bubble that you have, that it's handling the fiscalization. And there are no, of course, documentation, because there was no need to do that. You didn't create general documentation. And related to that documentation, we have to say that you don't have the general documentation in your company because you are pushing mostly the responsibility to the local suppliers. You are telling, okay, you are the fiscal solution provider in Romania, please do it for me. I will pay you and do whatever it's needed so that I'm compliant. So that's why you are relying mostly, maybe not 100%, but mostly on local consultants and solution providers in those countries. That's why you don't have documentation. That's why you don't have anything which is going more global. You are not doing proactively monitoring of the country, because again, you are pushing the responsibility to the local providers, telling them, I'm paying you to provide a solution, tell me if something is changing in that country, and then I will react again. And this is the cycle that we have related to the reaction. And I have to say, the most of the POS software vendors and the most of the retailers are exactly on this level. They are working with compliance exactly on this way. If you recognize your company, and if you recognize that you are also working in that kind of firefighting mode, just comment it a little bit so that that we know that we are not alone, let's say, but that there are some other colleagues which are in the same situation. Overall, we can say on that level, on this level, or in this group of the companies, those companies don't have a single owner of the process, single owner of the topic, and they are always in firefighting mode. They are just reacting on markets, management's requirements, law changes, and so on. If I would recommend one activity, let's say, which is needed to move to the next level, it would be to name first the responsibility into one person, so to make one person responsible for overall compliance topics, and then to start working with them. There are much more activities which are needed, of course, and all of them are described in detail in the book. Who recognize himself on this level? If you want to share with us, feel free. This would be interesting to see. So I can say 70% of the companies are on this level. Maybe not 70, but 60 for sure. Okay, let's move to the next level, the level number 2. So the level number 2 is so-called fragmented mode or fragmented level. So the companies, yeah, there is one of our colleagues are telling us in the chat that they are exactly on the level 1. Yes. With fiscal compliance 10 years ago. So this means you improved in between, so you moved to higher levels, or are you still on the level 1? It would be interesting to know. In between, till we get the answer, if now it's much better situation. I didn't see it. He wrote, we were definitely at level 1. Sorry, I didn't see it. Yes. Yeah, this is exactly the point. Thank you for that input. It's exactly like that. Many companies started on this level and then moved slowly, but it took some time. And many companies are still on this level. Level number 2, the compliance maturity model, is telling us that there is a group of the company which I called fragmented companies. Those companies are creating the islands, let's say, and each island is handling the compliance on that way. On their own way. I will start with an example. Why? Because most of the POS software vendors, which are global, which have a global solutions, are working according to this mode. Many retailers as well. But I will give you an example of one of the very famous, I will not name it, of course, POS software vendors, which is huge. And that software vendor has several offices across the globe. Head office is, let's assume, in maybe Germany. It's not, but maybe in Germany. And it has offices across the world. One of the offices is in France, for example, and another one is in UK. And now the situation is happening like this. The office in France is handling the accounts which are in France. And let's imagine one of those accounts, for example, Carrefour, is very international customer in many different markets. It's a perfect customer for that POS software vendor, handled by their local office in France. So this means they are handling everything over there for that customer. Means software versions, management of the releases, QA, certifications, and so on. At the same time, we have office in UK. And by the way, this is real life example. This is what is happening to us almost daily. In UK, there is another office from the same company, and that office is handling the large international accounts in UK, for example, Tesco. And now the situation is like this. Carrefour has in certain situations or certain countries stores, and in the same countries, Tesco has it as well. And suddenly you have one POS software vendor which has two different versions, because it's one is for Carrefour and one is for UK, for Tesco, handled by two different teams in the same country. This is real life situation. I love that situation. Why? Because in this situation, I, as a software provider, as a consultancy provider, solution and consultancy provider, I can sell my consultancies twice. I can sell it in France to the team in France. And even if I tell them, yesterday, your team in UK bought my services in UK, don't buy it again. Ask your colleagues to help you. Nevertheless, they will decide to buy second time, because the company, post software vendor, is organized on that way that each office has own profit and loss responsibilities and account responsibility, and they don't want to mix. They want to be separated. This is the fragmented mode. There is no unique process. There is no documentation which is unique, just on the level of the group. So the French office has documentation, of course, for Carrefour, but UK has also the documentation for Tesco and for UK customers. So that's why it's fragmented, isolated. The awareness of the company related to the compliance topic is growing, of course. Suddenly more people are involved and they know more about that. There are teams handling the fiscalization and compliance, but those teams are mostly isolated and they are creating double efforts or even double costs. So overall, we can say on that level, the teams are existing, but they are duplicated. The teams are duplicated and the works are duplicated. So everything is duplicated. And there are much more local versions than it should be, because the more local versions you have, the more complex is maintenance. And now remember the ambitions to have the less complex situation. So the post software vendor cannot fulfill that because it's creating by himself already the complexity in the market. So it's not just fiscalization itself, but the management and the way how the post software vendor is handling is creating complexity as well. By the way, the retailers are working on a very similar way. Some of them, not all of them. I mentioned you Carrefour. Carrefour has this is a good example because some of the retailers are fragmented as well. They have regions, let's say, to control the operations in certain regions. Carrefour is a good example. A couple of years ago, Carrefour had even regional head office. It was in the Czech Republic, and it was responsible for the other European countries. Other European countries was the region. So they created their own strategies for the software, for the business parts, business models, processes, and so on. So they created by themselves double work as well, double teams and so on. So it's not that different between post software vendor and retailers. If you are in this on this level, please give us a sign that you are on this level, so then we will know that there are other guys on this level as well. Many post software vendors are here, especially if they are big. Retailers as well, by the way. Anybody on this level who wants to share us with this information? Feel free to do that. Okay, if you want to move from this level to another level, I think the biggest point is to define, let's say, the process between the law definition or the moment that you recognize that there is something that you have to implement till the moment of the deployment. And this is a good starting point. After you define that in general, let's say, but you can define it in general only if you go first into the details, analyze all of them, and then define the general process, you will be able to make harmonized handling of the processes. There are much more steps, as I mentioned a couple of seconds before, but this is one that I would use to start, let's say, to handle the fiscalization and the compliance a little bit different. The third level, I call it connected level. So after this workshop, after this webinar, you will recognize for sure that you have this problem, and you will maybe recognize the way how to go and to solve that problem, and then you will start approaching the next level. You will start talking to your colleagues, which are doing the same things, and you will start connecting the nodes, let's say, of the network in your own company. You will start thinking globally. Till now, the first level and second level companies are not thinking globally. They are thinking either in islands, which are like regions, or just related to country, and that's it. On this level, the companies are starting to create the processes which can be shared around the islands that we just discussed. You are starting working on architectures which can apply and be used in all those islands. You are starting working on tools which can be implemented and used in all those islands. If I'm talking about architecture, I'm not talking about external architectures like we are external module and we have a certain architecture. I'm talking about a post-software architecture, and especially the part which is handling the localization and then the compliance in that particular country. Then you will start working on the documentation which can be shared. You will try to standardize that documentation, and you will do that, of course, so that everybody across the country, across the company can use it. I can say that on that level, the compliance is becoming a part of the operation. It's not anymore firefighting solution for the certain requirements which are popping because there is a trend to do e-invoicing in one country. No, now it's part of the operation. This is already not that isolated. It's still not harmonized. There is still space and possibilities to improve that, but it's not isolated anymore. You have a team which is related or which is responsible for the compliance overall. You have a maybe compliance chief officer or something like that, so person who is responsible for that. And you are proactively working on the compliance. So you are not waiting that the markets are pushing you. You are already creating everything what is needed, so to be ready, let's say, in advance about everything. Even if you are talking about news and the changes of the laws in certain countries, you are not relying on the local structure to be informed, because this would mean you are reacting. You are proactive. So this means you are looking to monitor the countries and the laws and so on by yourself, or to establish the methods which are, let's say, helping you to get the information proactively and not reactively. If you want to move from level 3, and by the way, if you're on the level 3, please comment, but I can say you that there are not that many companies in the world which are on this level. So there are really not that many companies. By the way, we are working in more than 28, 29 countries of the world, and we are monitoring 67 or something like that countries. So I think that we know how let's say, the worldwide compliance market is looking in the moment. If you want to move to the next level, which would be the strategical one, I think it's a very good starting moment, let's say, kind of compliance operational review. So this means to regularly to check the statuses of your KPIs that you have now and that you are implementing, in order to see what can be changed and how to change the certain things. It's like a gate that you create. So nothing can be implemented without going through this kind of review, for example. Okay, so if you did all that and all those steps which are described in the book, maybe you will reach the level 4, which is the best way at all to handle the compliance. It's a strategical way. And I will give you a couple of characteristics. I know just a few companies, really, maybe just on one hand, fingers of one hand to count. So there are not that many companies which are doing it on this way. First, if you want to handle it strategically, this means actually that you see advantage in compliance topic, not burden. So it's not, there are two states of the countries in the eyes of the post-software vendors and retailers. One state is a normal country. So it's a typical standard country, which is easy or complex to implement, but there is a standard country, normal country, and fiscal country. It's like a different state. Like, this is the good state, and this is like a illness. It's a sick country. It has a fiscalization. You should not see it like that. If you see it like that, you will not be able to reach the level 4, because then you are fighting illness and not implementing something which is helping you to do the business better. So on this level, leadership see compliance as an advantage. They recognize that if they are faster in implementing compliance, they can be miles ahead compared to their competition. Because remember the example in the first, as I started the webinar with those business manager, imagine that he had everything in place, the processes which are helping him to do the decisions like this, being sure that they will implement it like this, being sure that it will be compliant. He could make the same decision probably in the similar time, maybe a little bit longer than 20 minutes that I wrote on the slide. But at the end, he will be able to make this decision very fast, and this could help him to become better in that country than everybody else who is not doing that. So if you treat it like, if you embed the compliance in your global business strategy and your technology strategy, it cannot happen that you are not fast, innovative, good enough, and so on. What does it mean to embed it in the technology? You should never make, from my point of view, you should never make the decision of the architecture of the POS software without keeping in mind that you will have the compliance in certain countries which are maybe requiring completely different architecture. So that's why even during the design phase of whatever solution in your organization, you have to keep that in mind. And if you do that, then you can create better infrastructure and react better. I see on this level that those 5 companies, more or less, there are more, not just 5, that they are even doing something very interesting. They're doing research and innovating, of course, by that in the area of compliance as well. Usually, the POS software vendors are just doing research and development in the areas which are improving the sales functionalities, because they think the more and the better the sales functions are, the better will be the sales of the software, because the retailer will love it more. This is certainly true. But if you do the research and development in compliance area, you will be also able to sell the software easier and better, because the retailer will not have the risks and the problems which he could have other way around if you didn't implement that. So this is the difference. It's a different mindset. You see it as advantage. You see it as an area of innovation, area of research and development, and so on. And all other levels, 1 and 2, see it as a burden, something that I have to implement and then to move on. Implement and move on, implement and move on. And these guys are thinking strategically. So on that level, I can say overall characteristics are the processes and tools are harmonized, the management and the leadership is pushing it because they see the advantage of that. They are able to calculate at least a little bit the return on investment. They are using KPIs, they are innovating, and they see it as an advantage. So this is definitely something that, from my point of view, every POS software vendor and retailer should reach, because then the life will be easier for them. One of the activities which I see always on that level is following the compliance, and this means now the team handling the compliance is like a gate. So nothing can happen without approval of compliance. So the first situation, the first example which I used could not happen because the business manager should first ask compliance team, is that okay if I do that? And if you automate that kind of communication, then it can happen also very, very fast. This is one part of the major part of the book, to describe those levels. But to understand those levels and to mirror those levels towards activities that you have to do, you have to understand the fiscalization. And this is the next and one of the biggest parts of the book. It's explaining exactly the elements of the fiscalization. Like, for example, what are the terms that we are using? In US, everybody is using, for example, tendering, and we are using payment medias. So these are 2 different worlds. And if we don't agree about the meaning of those words and terms, it will be very difficult to work. So that's why I'm starting with terms. Then I'm moving over the different fiscal laws, explaining the different challenges which are existing there, responsibilities, environments, and so on. But I'm touching also very concrete technical topics, like, for example, fiscal printers, Not going into the technical detail, but at least explaining the components. Because from my point of view, whoever is working in the fiscalization should understand what is EEPROM, for example, and which part of the fiscal printer is fiscal memory. Even if we think, all of us, that fiscal printers are outdated and old-fashioned and so on, 40% of the fiscal countries still have it, or even maybe more. So it's a common topic that you will face as a challenge in fiscal countries, so you should understand it. I'm explaining that. But then even more important topic, all of us are talking about hashing algorithms, about chaining transactions, about certificates, digital certificates, about digital signatures, about private and public keys. But I can bet with you, public key, just type in yes or no. Good, very good, yes. You need both of them if you want to sign whatever you want. You see, so this is already the beginning. So even if we are, no, of course not. I don't think that it's very important to know how is it working and what are the algorithms, scripting algorithms which are used. But the level which is needed to have it is described in this book. And this is helpful if you want to manage, let's say, the fiscalization. You have to understand it in order to require something from solution providers or to define the strategy for your country or whatever. So these topics are explained in the book on the not too deep technically, but deep enough so that you can work with that as a manager as well, not just as a technical person. So perfect for onboarding, definitely. Type of the solution providers. We are just one type of the solution providers. There are many different fiscal solutions provider. You should have the overview, let's say, what is existing. Then solution architectures. It's not, even if I have a middleware which is in the cloud, this is maybe not the best solution for you and the best architecture for you, because for certain countries, maybe it's not fitting at all because you need the local components and there is a maybe fiscal printer which don't have any kind of network interface, so you cannot access it from the cloud. So that you have to understand that this is existing, and that should help you to define your strategy, how to handle these situations as well. Talking about database strategies, it's not just database. Database is actually synonym for data model. So the question is, which kind of data models are you using as a retailer, or you as a POS software vendor, and we as a solution provider, and which kind of data models are requested by the law? All that together has to be understood before you make your decision how to do something. So this is basically explained in the book in the detail, but I'm not stopping with that kind of more technical or environmental issues. I'm going also further and explaining all the processes which are related to the fiscalization and basically part of the fiscalization, but not the technical requirements, like, for example, certification. There are different types of the certification. France has one type. Portugal is very similar to France from the type point of view, but Hungary has totally different type of certification. So this means you have to understand what are the challenges of all those certifications and how can you prepare for all of them in order to have in your team, let's say, the needed documents, the needed people, the needed skills, and so on. So that's what I'm discussing in the chapter related to the certification. Then we can move to the strategical information management. Remember the example from the beginning. Business manager didn't know that he has to take care of the fiscalization. So this means the management of the information in the company is somehow not really working. Otherwise, he should know that he is in the fiscal country requiring to fiscalize the systems if you sell something like this, like that, like that, like that. So it's information management. How to organize that? My recommendation how to do it is described in this book, including the topics like monitoring of the fiscal laws which are happening or which are changing maybe around the globe. It makes sense to have a view, let's say, at least in those chapters, because maybe you get some inspirations and ideas how you can organize your own teams and information management. as we are speaking about the teams, it's very difficult to define which kind of skills do you need in your team. I know that because we have around 70 people with all different skills related to the fiscalization. And I know how difficult it is to define and to find the people which have those needed knowledge, let's say, and experiences which we need in the fiscalization. It's always related to the legal topics. It's always related to the retail processes and the retail way of working and doing the business, and to the technical requirements. And these kind of skills which are needed and structures which I could recommend you based on our structure, of course, are defined in the chapter which is handling the team part. And my favorite, as I mentioned in the beginning, are the checklists and KPIs, because this is very practical. Based on the experiences which we had, like, for example, the retailer forgot to register the tax ID at the authority. These kind of things are in those checklists because we have the experiences, what can happen if you don't do this or that. So we included all that in the checklists, and now you can take the checklist and see if it's in your environment already implemented or not. If yes, fine, no problem. If not, think about it, maybe it could help you. So those checklists, there are 7 checklists which I included. I have one small example here as well, of course. Those checklists are covering post-software vendors as well, because I think for retailer, it's very important to evaluate the post-software vendor as well. It's very important to evaluate us and other fiscal solutions provider in different countries. I describe in this checklist how you could do that. Then to think about middleware and the solution which you could use or develop by yourself, it doesn't matter. But here are the points which I think that you should check if you are talking about that. Then country rollout readiness, that's my favorite, and I have it later as example. How do you know that you are ready to roll out the version of the software which you just implemented? What are the elements and the tasks that you should take care of in order to be successful in rollout? This is part of this roadmap, of this checklist, and so on. So let me give you a short overview, and this is now really very shortened checklist. So I took the country rollout readiness checklist and I squeeze it a little bit just to give you just a couple of points so that you can see in which direction is this going. So each of those points, which you can see now here on this slide and on this slide, is described in detail in the book. And I will just pick one of them, for example, compliance supplies. In some countries, you need to have a special paper, for example, in case that your POS is offline. This paper is used, it's numbered in a special way and has a special water stamp or something like that. And you have to use it to issue the receipts in the store. So in some cases, the retailers don't think about that. Why? Because the post software vendor is not taking care of that at all, because it's a like supply. Retailer don't know, if he is not mature enough, that he need that, and nobody told him. Post software vendor cannot usually don't tell to the retailer that, because he is not thinking that it's his responsibility. And paper supplier, who is doing the paper rolls for the printers, he thinks it's also not his job, because he is just responsible for the labels and for the receipt printer paper, not for this kind of like invoice paper or like a receipt paper, which is for the manual receipts. So that's why we put it in the list. So please think about that. Or register at the software authority, or test, do at least one transaction with the software authority server if you have it, and so on and so on and so on. It's a very interesting from my point of view, so I can recommend to have a view on that. Let me give a couple of words about KPIs, and then we are slowly going towards end of the presentation today or webinar today. KPIs should give you inspiration. What could you measure, and how could you measure, let's say, the success of your project? We have several of them for the retailers and several of them for the post software vendor. And now I want to give you a short example how we did in one of the projects, in the real life projects with one of the post software vendors. We have the request was like this: could you help us to measure the software development in order to optimize, let's say, the software development of the fiscalization development, let's say. So we defined the KPI. with that company together. We called it update turnaround time. So it's a time between getting the message that you have to do something till deploying the software that you created. We measured that time, but not just as a complete time. We measured the parts of the time as well. How long does it take to define what you have to do? How long did it take to develop certain things? And how long was the QA? We did that over 2 years or something like that, over several countries. The results were unbelievably interesting and very logical at the end. The longest phase was the definition phase. And it took a really long time to find the documents, to understand the documents, to translate the documents, to write the technical specs for the POS software, to write the manuals, and all these kind which are in preparation phase. We were able then, we discussed with this POS software vendor how to optimize this area. And based on the output which we have in our company, means portal, which is producing lots of documents which are already quite ready, the POS software vendor, our customer, was able to cut this time by more than 50%. And now imagine how big the advantage for that POS software vendor is if he is able to cut the development time, at least the first phase, by almost 50%. So this is a huge benefit. At the end, let me share with you which countries are actually included in the appendix, which are actually described as an overview. These 25 countries. So these are the countries that we are also providing solution for them, of course, as well, and that you can find on the portal, but you can find the detailed overview description in the book as well. Okay, so just for you to remember, 2 major challenges that I'm solving with this book. The first one is training, to cut the time from several months to a couple of days or weeks for the new people. And the second, to create a toolkit and a framework which is enabling you as a retailer or POS software vendor to work more mature with the compliance, and by that to make it even your competitive advantage. You can find the book, of course, on Amazon. You can order it over there worldwide, and Amazon is shipping very fast. So you can either use this button over there if you want now, or you can scan that and barcode, QR code, and check the details. On Amazon, you can find also sample read, so you can see the content, all the details, what is actually inside the book, so you don't need to rush and to buy it now. If you have any questions related to topics, I would be very happy to answer them. What I didn't tell you is this. Do you want to hear about objections? Because these are maybe 4 very interesting topics. I am hearing always, as I mentioned, from the retailers and POS software vendors, we are very unique. So it's not fitting to us because those models, we are different. Shall I give you a couple of words about that? Or maybe we don't have time to do these kind of things. There is too much pressure in the project. We have to open the stores in the new country in 5 weeks. And now you're talking about this. I will not say what. Shall I comment this? Do you want to hear that for a couple of minutes? If yes, please give me a sign in the chat. Please do. Okay, I will do it. No problem. So very, very short explanation about 4 objections, which I usually hear if I'm talking to the customers, to the retailers. First, we are very unique. No, you are not. I'm sorry to tell you that. You are unique at the end point. So the result of your work is very unique. You have the very unique business process. You have very unique end successes, end results, software, features, and so on. But the process to reach those points is very, very similar in all companies. I was just able to identify those 4 levels. There are, of course, states between those levels, of course, and this is maybe what makes you feel very unique. But at the end, you are always in one of those 4 levels, how you organize your company. I tried to keep those models or those levels as agnostic as possible. And I think you will always find the elements which are not fitting to you, for sure. Because of course, somehow we are all a little bit different, for sure. But then just adapt it. Use your own ideas and your own, let's say, processes. The next one is my favorite topic. So people are telling you, you don't have time, or we don't have time to do this or that. This is like, I like to make an example of this situation. Imagine the situation that it's raining. I started with a rainy day, and you are running with the umbrella under your arm. And I'm asking you, why don't you open the umbrella? And you are telling me, I don't have time, it's raining. So the management is requesting something and you don't have time to open the rain or the umbrella because it's raining. The requests are coming. The countries are changing the laws. This is the point. Sometimes it's better to check a little bit, to stop a little bit, to get a little bit wet, of course, but then to find the ways how to optimize certain things. This book will help you for sure to reduce at least the training time. It's already great. And it's already buy for you certain amount of time. Maybe not that long, but at least the people which are used to train your teammates will have a more free time to develop something. So this is already how you can save some time. Sorry. Vendors will handle it. I love that, because the retailers are usually pushing the responsibility to post-software vendors, telling them, you are a post-software vendor, I'm paying you to get the local version, do it. I don't care how you do it. You as a post-software vendors, you are pushing the responsibility to us. You are telling us, you are the solution provider for fiscalization, I'm paying you, I don't care, do it. Everything is true. It is like that. This is our job, to be responsible for certain things. But without internal maturity, you will not be able to scale. It doesn't matter if you are a retailer or post-software vendor. You will not be able to scale, and you will not be able to understand and verify what I as a supplier am telling you. Maybe I will tell you that you need to buy the paper, and then you have to decide, do you want to buy that special paper in that country or not? To be able to do that, you will need the knowledge. So there is no way to push the responsibility entirely to post-software vendor or to solution provider. So this kind of books and resources are helping you to get this kind of overview and then to handle it by yourself partially, for sure. Laws are keeping changing, so I don't want to do anything. This doesn't make sense to do it now, because tomorrow they will change the law again. True, but the governments don't care about that. So if they have a law now, you have to do it now, even if they will have tomorrow the different law. That's like that. It's life like that. So guys, thank you very much for your attention. I needed a little bit more time to cover all the topics which I wanted to share with you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me anytime. This webinar was recorded and we will publish it as well. So don't worry, you can watch the recording as you like. And if you want to order the book, if you see that it's helpful for you, please do that. Yeah, and I wish you a very nice evening, pleasant evening, and see you soon again.
Thank you so much, Darko, for this very insightful and interesting presentation. So if you have questions, you can type in chat. We will wait a few minutes. Someone is typing. Okay. We have one question, so Darko.
Yes. In the book, do you address the emerging trends on, I'm not sure, I'm not able to see it. It's gray for me. Yes,
okay,
please read it.
Yes, I can read it. In the book, do you address the emerging trends on how fiscal compliance is implemented? I'm thinking of the difference between France archive data, produce it on demand, and here real-time reporting.
And near-time real-time reporting.
Yes.
Yes. Yes and no. So first, in the appendix, which is handling 25 different requirements, I'm going quite deep into the detail to describe what is actually required in those countries. But I didn't compare the country between each other, telling you in France you have to do this like this, and in this like that. So I'm handling each of the countries by itself. But if you read those countries, you will be able to compare them immediately. But I'm not handling the countries like Colombia, Brazil, and so on. There are 25 countries which are mostly European countries. Just one is not European. It's a Ghana. It's Africa, of course, country in Africa. All others are European. So after reading those countries, you will be able to compare the countries in between each other. But most probably not the country with any of those countries with Colombia, because I didn't describe Colombia in this case. Unless you know Colombia, then you will be able to compare it and to see what is going on. You are talking about emerging trends. So I'm not going that deep into the technical implementation, so that if you want to develop, for example, live shopping, or I'm not solving the question if the live shopping is a fiscal process or not in the book. I'm not doing that. But you will have a very good base in order to understand by yourself, can it be in certain country fiscal process or not? I will give you an example. In many countries, e-commerce is not treated as a fiscal part, as a fiscal topic. If the country is treating live shopping as an e-commerce, then it's probably not a fiscal topic at all. Many countries are treating social commerce, live shopping, and similar concepts as e-commerce, and that's why it's in most countries not fiscal. So this kind of basic knowledge is in the book, so you will be able to make your own conclusion, but you will still need to verify it according to the laws or with the laws in that particular country. Was it okay? Did I answer your question? Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Darko. If you don't have any other questions, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I hope that you enjoyed, and thank you once again for spending time with us today. See you soon and have a great day.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.